Mike Donovan, Season 1, Episode 1. The first kill we see sets the tone for everything. Mike Donovan was a school choir teacher and trusted member of the community, but behind closed doors, he was a predator. He abducted young boys and buried their mutilated remains beneath a cabin. Dexter found the bodies, gathered the evidence, and showed Donovan what he'd hidden from the world. Strapped to the table in a remote cabin, Donovan had no more lies to tell. Dexter slit his throat and left the monster in the dark where he belonged. Jaime Jorski, Season 1, Episode 1. Jaime Jorski was a valet by day and a sadist by night. He kidnapped Jane Saunders and murdered her in a snuff film he posted to his S&M site. A botched search warrant let him walk free. Dexter confirmed the kill by matching a tattoo from the video to Jorowski himself, then caught Jorski stealing copper at a construction site. Strapped to Dexter's kill table and oozing arrogance, Jorski admitted everything without remorse. Dexter answered with a clean decapitation from a meat cleaver. Matt Chambers, Season 1, Episode 2. Matt Chambers was a repeat offender with a deadly pattern. 5 hit-and-runs across 3 states, each ending in a dead pedestrian and a slap on the wrist. He faked injuries, changed identities, and milked the system for payouts. Dexter saw through the lies. He lured Chambers in by pretending to be a fellow addict, then struck when he was alone. Strapped to the table, Chambers had nowhere to run. Dexter stabbed him in the chest, ending the cycle Chambers had mastered. Nurse Mary, Season 1, Episode 3. Nurse Mary was Dexter's first kill and Harry's first lesson. She worked in the hospital's pediatric ward where patients kept dying under her care. Harry suspected she was poisoning people instead of helping them. In a flashback, we see Mary strapped to a primitive version of the kill table. Dexter stabbed her 3 times in the stomach, starting the ritual that would shape the rest of his life. Jorge and Valerie Castillo, Season 1, Episode 5. Jorge and Valerie Castillo posed as a married couple running a legitimate salvage yard. In reality, they were smugglers and murderers, trafficking immigrants and killing those who couldn't pay. Dexter confirmed their crimes and set the trap. Both were sedated and brought to the same kill room. Dexter kills both of them at the salvage yard, but due to running low on time, he just dumps Valerie's body into the ocean without cutting it up. In the next episode, the ice truck killer retrieves the body and places it back into the kill room. Dexter then frames Jorge for his wife's murder. Alexander Timmons, Jean Marshall, Cindy Landon, Season 1, Episode 6. As Dexter examines a trio of bloodslide, memories surface. Alexander Timmons, a sniper. Jean Marshall, arsonist. Cindy Landon, a black widow. Dr. Emmett Meridian, Season 1, Episode 8. Dr. Emmett Meridian was a high-profile psychiatrist with a string of patient suicides behind him. He preyed on the vulnerable, pushing them deeper into despair. Dexter posed as a new patient and confirmed his suspicions during their sessions. In a quiet, sterile office-turned-kill room, Dexter strapped him down mid-session. Meridian tried to talk his way out, but Dexter cut his throat with a surgical saw, leaving the good doctor in the silence he forced on others. Brian Moser, Season 1, Episode 12. Brian Moser was the ice truck killer and Dexter's biological brother. He murdered prostitutes, drained their blood, and left their bodies as puzzles only Dexter could solve. When the truth came out, Brian offered Dexter a life without the code, but it meant killing Deborah. Dexter couldn't let that happen. He drugged Brian, laid him out in his kill room, and slit his throat with a scalpel. To the world, it looked like suicide. To Dexter, it was a choice between family by blood and family by bond. Alfonso, Little Chino, Concepcion, Season 2, Episode 2. Little Chino was anything but little, a towering gang enforcer with a trail of blood behind him. He used a machete to kill a child during a botched intimidation job, then walked free when the system failed. Dexter tried once and botched it, letting Chino escape, but he got a second chance. In a makeshift kill room inside an abandoned building, Dexter finally brought him down. Chino woke up strapped to the table, defiant to the end. Dexter drove a machete through his chest, ending a reign built on fear and brutality. Roger Hicks, Season 2, Episode 3. Roger Hicks sold used cars and lies, a slick salesman hiding a darker appetite. He posed as a grieving widower to lure women into his trap, then sexually assaulted and murdered them in staged accidents. Dexter confirmed his pattern and set the scene. In a garage-turned-kill room, Hicks woke up on the table, still trying to sell his innocence. Dexter wasn't buying. He drove a blade through Hicks's chest, leaving one less predator in the world. Ken Olsen, Season 2, Episode 6. Ken Olsen craved recognition. So much so, he impersonated the Bay Harbor butcher by killing a convicted pedophile and mimicking Dexter's ritual. But he got it wrong. No table, no code, just sloppy theatrics. Dexter couldn't let that stand. He set a trap in an abandoned train car, drugged Olsen, and strapped him down. Olsen confessed, proud of what he'd done. Dexter picked up a cleaver and removed his head. Santos Jimenez, Season 2, Episode 8. Santos Jimenez was one of the men who killed Dexter's mother, the event that shaped his entire life. For years, Jimenez vanished into witness witness protection until Dexter finally found him working in a remote bar. This wasn't about the code, it was personal. Dexter later found him in a cabin where he decapitated him with a chainsaw. This was the only time we ever saw Dexter use a chainsaw. Jose Garza, Season 2, Episode 10. Jose Garza was looking for a missing drug shipment. After texting Santos Jimenez's phone, unaware Dexter had it, he threatened to search the cabin where Dokes was being held. Dexter couldn't risk exposure. He lured Garza in, drugged him, and killed him, chopping his body with a handsaw. The dismembered remains were left behind in the cabin. After Lila blows up the cabin, his charred remains were found, suggesting that Dokes in fact was the Bay Harbor butcher. Juan Ryness, Season 2, Episode 10. Juan Ryness was a violent pimp who murdered Detective Harry Morgan's partner and a prostitute. A faulty warrant let him walk free, hatefully. Years earlier, Harry quietly gave young Dexter permission to act. The memory shows young Dexter in the garage, dismembering Ryness on a table. Harry walked in, horrified by what he had trained his son to do. Esteban and Teo Famosa, Season 2, Episode 11. Esteban and Teo Famosa were drug runners who found Dokes when he escaped Dexter's cage. Dexter returned to the cabin when Dokes was being forced to move the drugs. Esteban was killed first, off-screen. After, Dokes distracted Teo while Dexter shot him in the chest. Lila West, Season 2, Episode 12. Lila West was a manipulative, obsessive killer, willing to kill to protect Dexter's secret. After murdering Dokes and endangering Rita's children, she fled to Paris. Dexter followed. He found her alone in her flat. After seeing a "Greetings from Miami" postcard, Dexter drugs her. One final stab to the chest ended her life. Cal Rooney, Season 3, Episode 1. Cal Rooney was a night watchman who used his keys to stalk and kill women at the fairgrounds. He targeted his victims when the rides were shut down and no one was watching. Dexter caught him late one night, alone in the carnival funhouse. In a flashback, we see Rooney strapped to an early version of the kill table when Dexter decapitated him with a cleaver. Oscar Prado, Season 3, Episode 1. Oscar Prado was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Dexter broke into a drug dealer's house looking for Freebo, only to stumble into Oscar, who was struggling with the dealer. In the chaos, Oscar turned his anger on Dexter and attacked. With no time to think, Dexter stabbed him in the chest in self-defense. Oscar gasped, "Who are you?" before collapsing. This was the first kill that didn't follow the code. Fred Freebo Bowman, Season 3, Episode 2. Fred Freebo Bowman was a low-level drug dealer wanted for the murder of a college student. After a failed attempt to catch him led to Oscar Prado's death, Dexter was determined to make things right. He found Freebo hiding at home, cornered him in the garage, and drove a bayonet into his neck. Nathan Martin, Season 3, Episode 3. Nathan Martin was a convicted sex offender who couldn't keep his eyes to himself. Dexter found him photographing Astor on the beach and later confronted him in his own home. Without ceremony or table, Dexter silently strangled Martin with his own hands, ending the threat before it ever began. Ethan Turner, Season 3, Episode 5. Ethan Turner was a professional predator, a charming fundraiser who seduced and married wealthy women, then murdered them for their money. Miguel Prado brought the case to Dexter, knowing Turner had slipped through the legal system twice. Dexter tracked him to a cruise ship docked in Miami, knocked him out with M99, and completed the kill before the ship could leave port. One stab to the heart, then overboard in pieces. Clemson Galt, Season 3, Episode 6. Clemson Galt was an Aryan Brotherhood inmate who murdered his pregnant girlfriend and orchestrated multiple killings from inside prison. With the help of Miguel Prado, Dexter captured Clemson, leading him into a staged escape and brought him to his ex's murder house. Despite Dexter agreeing to let Miguel in on this kill, he took him to a secret kill room and stabbed him cleanly in the chest before disposing of the body. Camila Figg, Season 3, Episode 7. Camila Figg had known Dexter since childhood, a loyal friend of his adoptive parents, and one of the few who truly cared for him. As cancer consumed her and the pain became unbearable, she begged Dexter to help her die. He refused at first, clinging to the code, but eventually returned with her favorite dessert. Hidden in the key lime pie was a lethal dose of sodium pentothal. She took one bite, smiled softly, and passed with peace. It was the only time Dexter killed out of kindness. Miguel Prado, Season 3, Episode 11. Miguel Prado was an assistant district attorney who befriended Dexter after his brother's death. Their bond unraveled when Miguel crossed the line, killing to further his own agenda and undermining Dexter's code. Dexter set a trap under the guise of a confrontation, sedated Miguel, and claimed him inside a staged kill room. With a garrote wire, Dexter strangled Miguel until he was gone. George King, Season 3, Episode 12. George King, known as the Skinner, was a sadistic torturer targeting anyone tied to the hunt for Freebo. He skinned victims alive to extract information. When King kidnapped and began torturing Anton Briggs, Dexter intervened. During a struggle between Dexter and George, Dexter overpowered him, snapped King's neck, and staged his death to a suicide by dropping the body in front of a police car. Benito Gomez, Season 4, Episode 1. Benito Gomez was a former boxer with a history of violence and a clean record thanks to a forensic mistake that let him walk. Dexter blamed himself for the error and made it right the only way he knew how. He tracked Gomez to an abandoned gym, injected him with M99, and dragged him into the ring. There, surrounded by echoes of blood and glory, Dexter stabbed him in the heart. Zoe Krueger. Season 4, Episode 4. Zoe Krueger was a cop who knew how to cover her tracks. She staged her husband and daughter's murders to look like a gang hit, but Dexter saw through the story. Blood spatter, missing evidence, and a staged break-in told the real tale. She'd done it herself. Dexter waited until she let her guard down, then struck. He sedated her with M99, brought her to her own home, and laid her out in her daughter's bedroom. When she woke up, surrounded by the truth, Dexter slit her throat. Jonathan Farrow. Season 4, Episode 7. Jonathan Farrow was a high-profile photographer with a reputation for abusing and objectifying the women he worked with. When a model turned up murdered, Farrow became the prime suspect, and Dexter moved quickly. He broke into Farrow's home, sedated him, and brought him to the kill room. Farrow denied everything, but Dexter had heard enough. He slashed Farrow's throat, only to discover later that Farrow was innocent. It was the first time the code had failed. Stan Beaudry. Season 4, Episode 11. Stan Beaudry was a trucker and registered sex offender, and the perfect scapegoat. With the FBI closing in on the Trinity killer, Dexter needed a body to throw them off. He found Beaudry at a truck stop and turned the man's own rig into a kill room. After killing Beaudry, Dexter planted evidence to frame Beaudry as Trinity, knowing the lie would buy him time. It wasn't justice, it was survival. Beaudry was the first deliberate kill that broke the code. Arthur Mitchell. Season 4, Episode 12. Arthur Mitchell lived two lives, family man and serial killer. As the Trinity killer, he followed a gruesome ritual: a young woman in a bathtub, a mother pushed to her death, a father bludgeoned with a hammer, and a kidnapped boy buried alive. Dexter hunted him for months, watching his double life mirror his own. Dexter decided he was done with Arthur, but it was too late. He had already killed his wife, Rita. Unknowingly, Dexter killed Arthur with a hammer and disposed of his body in the ocean. Marcetti. Season 5, Episode 1. He is one of Dexter Morgan's earlier kills. He is featured in flashbacks that Dexter has of his first date with Rita Bennett. We don't know why Dexter was after Marcetti, but it can be assumed he was a murderer. Rankin. Season 5, Episode 1. Rankin was a belligerent stranger who crossed Dexter at the worst possible time. In the aftermath of Rita's murder, Dexter was unraveling, grief-stricken, numb, and desperate for release. When Rankin taunted him in a bathroom, mocking Rita's death, Dexter snapped. No planning, no code. He beat Rankin to death with a boat anchor in a fit of pure rage. There was no ritual, no table, just chaos. It was the first time Dexter killed for emotion, not justice. Boyd Fowler. Season 5, Episode 3. Boyd Fowler worked in dead animal pickup for the city of Miami, but the real horror was what he kept alive. He was a part of a group that kidnapped, raped, and murdered at least 12 women, putting their bodies in formaldehyde and dumping them in a swamp. Dexter confirmed the pattern, sedated him with M99, and prepared the table. After the kill, he realized someone witnessed it, Lumen. Not being able to do anything with the innocent bystander, he helped her recover, and after some initial fighting, they started to work together. Dan Mendel. Season 5, Episode 6. Dan Mendel was a member of the Barrel Girl gang. After Lumen tracked him down and shot him, he attempted to call Jordan Chase to warn him that Lumen was alive. Dexter, seeing proof that Dan was in fact one of Lumen's attackers, he snapped his neck. This was the first of Lumen and Dexter's joint kills. Lance Robinson. Season 5, Episode 6. Lance Robinson was a serial predator targeting gay men through kink meetups. Dexter ambushed and sedated him, wrapping him in plastic and leaving him trapped in the trunk while he helped Lumen. When Lance woke and escaped, Dexter chased him down, caught him, and strangled him with the plastic wrap. He staged the scene to look like an autoerotic mishap, using both bodies to mislead the public and police. Cole Harmon. Season 5, Episode 8. Cole Harmon was the enforcer of the Barrel Girl gang. Dexter tracked him to a hotel during a self-help convention, sneaking into his room to set up the kill. After a tense struggle, Dexter managed to sedate Cole with M99 and complete the ritual. Bound to the table and confronted with his crimes, Cole gave nothing but silence. Dexter shared the ritual and kill with Lumen, who found out who he truly was. Alex Tilden. Season 5, Episode 10. Alex Tilden was a wealthy businessman and one of the men who assaulted Lumen. Dexter tracked him down, confirmed his involvement, and set the table, but this time he didn't make the kill. With Dexter watching silently from the shadows, Lumen faced Alex, confronted her trauma, and drove the knife into his chest. It was her first kill, and her choice. Stan Liddy. Season 5, Episode 11. Stan Liddy was a disgraced cop turned private investigator, hired by Quinn to follow Dexter. But he didn't just follow, he found everything. After capturing footage of Dexter and Lumen disposing of something in the ocean, Liddy kidnapped Dexter and prepared to expose him. Liddy tied Dexter inside a van when Dexter managed to break free during a scuffle. Using Liddy's own switchblade, he stabbed him in the chest and left him dead in the van. Jordan Chase, Season 5, Episode 12. Jordan Chase was the mastermind behind the Barrel Girl Gang, a manipulative self-help guru who used power and influence to hide his crimes. He never touched the victims himself, but he orchestrated every assault, every murder. Dexter prepared the kill room, but he didn't take the life. That decision belonged to Lumen. As Jordan pleaded for control, she stabbed him in the chest, ending the cycle of violence he created. For her, it was closure. For Dexter, it was something more, proof that someone else could carry the dark passenger and let it go. Ben and Roger, Season 6, Episode 1. Ben and Roger were Miami paramedics, part of a corrupt scheme to let patients die so their organs could be harvested. After Dexter faked being injured in a warehouse, they showed up to pick him up. Once inside their ambulance, Dexter injected them both with M99, bound them to gurneys, and explained their crimes. Then, using the ambulance's defibrillator paddles, he delivered powerful shocks to both hearts, killing them simultaneously. Joe Walker, Season 6, Episode 1. Joe Walker, a former high school star and abusive husband, attended Dexter's 20-year high school reunion. Having confirmed Joe killed his wife Janet via blood under her fingernails, Dexter devised a trap. He stole Trisha Billings' phone and later texted Joe pretending to be her, inviting him to the groundskeeper's shack. When Joe accepted, Dexter ambushed him there. He subdued Joe, strapped him to a makeshift kill table in the shack, then smashed his skull with a hammer before stabbing him in the chest. Walter Kenny, Season 6, Episode 3. Walter Kenny was once known as the Tooth Fairy, a serial killer who terrorized the country in the 1980s, ripping out his victims' teeth as trophies. Now old, bitter, and living in a retirement home, Dexter visited him under the alias Doug Crewley and confirmed his identity. When Kenny tried to kill Dexter, Dexter turned the tables. He tied him to a chair and suffocated him with a pillow, making it look like he died naturally. Julio Baines, Season 6, Episode 4. An ex-convict who was head of the Locos gang in Miami, he had a history of making people disappear. During a face-off with brother Sam, he had an unforeseen run-in with Dexter Morgan, which led to his demise. He killed Julio Baines in a barbershop. Nick, Season 6, Episode 6. Nick was a former gang member who claimed to have changed until he murdered brother Sam in cold blood. When Dexter confronted him, Nick showed no remorse. He laughed about the killing, mocking Sam's faith and final moments. Dexter tackled him into the ocean and held him under until he drowned. No tools, no table, just bare hands. This kill was extremely risky and fueled by emotion. Norm, Season 6, Episode 7. Norm, the pot-farming motel owner in Nebraska, offered to fix Dexter's flat tire at the Shady Lane Motel, then tried to extort him for 10 grand to get his own tools back. Dexter played along until Norm pulled a gun. In that moment, he seized a pitchfork and impaled Norm in the stomach through Brian's grip. Then Dexter dumped Norm's body in a sealed silo filled with harvest corn. Steve Dorsey, Season 6, Episode 10. Steve Dorsey was the devoted disciple of Travis Marshall, churning out doomsday sermons under the name Doomsday Adam. Dexter infiltrated the yacht they were on, mistook Steve for Travis, and confronted him below deck. In the struggle, Steve lunged with a knife. Dexter fought back and stabbed him in the upper abdomen. Beth Dorsey, Season 6, Episode 11. Beth Dorsey was the wife of Steve Dorsey and one of Travis Marshall's most devoted followers. Beth slipped away and carried out the Wormwood tableau herself. She entered Miami Metro with a vial of poisonous gas concealed in her purse, intending to kill everyone inside. Dexter intervened just in time, pushing her into an interrogation room and sealing the door. As the gas filled the room, Dexter protected himself with plastic sheeting while Beth died choking on her own weapon. Alberto, Season 6, Episode 12. Dexter was rescued from the water by a Cuban migrant vessel, the Milagro, after narrowly surviving a doomsday tableau. The captain, Alberto, drew a gun and began robbing passengers. When Alberto threatened a pregnant woman, Dexter acted. He grabbed a boat hook, one of the few tools available, and impaled Alberto through the abdomen, sending him overboard to drown. Travis Marshall, Season 6, Episode 12. Travis Marshall was the Doomsday Killer, a religious fanatic who believed he was enacting God's will through ritualistic murders. After staging a series of apocalyptic tableaus, kidnapping Harrison, and attempting a final sacrifice, Travis retreated to the rooftop of an abandoned skyscraper. Dexter stopped the ritual, rescued his son, and later lured Travis to the same church where it all began. He sedated him, set up the table, and confronted him with every life he took, ending his life with a knife. Viktor Baskov, Season 7, Episode 1. Dexter traced Viktor to Miami International Airport after identifying his fingerprint on a victim's car. Viktor was sedated in an airport restroom using M99. Dexter then dragged him into a storage container nearby, where he bludgeoned Viktor to death with a fire extinguisher. The body was wrapped and dumped in the Gulf Stream. Ray Speltzer, Season 7, Episode 4. Ray Speltzer was a ritualistic killer who constructed elaborate, maze-like murder scenes and wore a bull's head while hunting his victims. After escaping justice in court, he returned to his violent ways. Dexter lured him into his own trap and knocked him unconscious with a shovel. Instead of setting up a table, Dexter put Speltzer's in a crematorium, chained him to a metal table, and stabbed him, then burned his body. Unnamed Hitman, Season 7, Episode 8. Dexter broke into Viktor Baskov's apartment, planning to ambush Isaac Serco and frame the Colombian cartel for the kill. But inside, he ran into someone else, a hitman hired for the same job. The man pulled a gun, but Dexter kept moving. Dexter struck first, lunging forward and slashing his throat before he could fire. Dexter left the body inside of the apartment. Oleg Mickic, Season 7, Episode 9. Oleg Mickic was a sniper and hitman for the Koshka Brotherhood, sent to eliminate Dexter and anyone who stood in the way of their operation. Dexter tracked him to a public shooting range where Oleg was practicing in a prone position. Slipping into the neighboring stall, Dexter waited until the shots masked his movement, then struck. He covered Oleg's mouth and stabbed him through the back with a knife, pinning him down. Clint McKay, Season 7, Episode 10. Clint McKay was Hannah McKay's estranged and abusive father, a grifter who reappeared in her life to blackmail her for money. When Dexter saw how easily Clint manipulated and threatened Hannah, he decided to act. He lured to a parking garage, injected him with M99, put him on his boat, and wrapped him in plastic. Dexter stabbed Clint in the chest and dumped his body overboard, erasing a toxic man from Hannah's life. Hector Estrada, Season 7, Episode 12. Hector Estrada was the last living link to the moment that created Dexter, the drug lord who ordered the hit that left Dexter's mother butchered before his eyes. Lagerta arranged his early release, hoping to trap Dexter into revealing his identity as the Bay Harbor Butcher, after initially trapping and nearly killing Estrada, but letting him go because Dexter realized it was a trap. Dexter tracks down and brings Estrada back to the shipping container, where he killed him before LaGuardia arrived. Unidentified Victim, Season 8, Episode 1. Dexter is briefly shown in a plastic-wrapped kill room, dressed in his kill attire and wearing a face shield. While holding a reciprocating saw, he leans toward the victim. Andrew Briggs, Season 8, Episode 1. Andrew Briggs, a man hiding out with Deborah, who was deep undercover and spiraling into self-destruction. When Dexter tracked them down, he confronted Briggs with Deb nearby, outside of their motel room. Their confrontation turned physical, and during the struggle, Briggs tried to grab a knife. Dexter grabbed it first and drove the blade into his chest, killing him on the floor. Ron Galuzzo, Season 8, Episode 3. Ron Galuzzo was a former salesman, hiding a horrific appetite behind suburban charm. While investigating Dr. Vogel's former patients, Dexter followed a trail of missing persons and discovered Galuzzo's secret. He was a cannibal, preserving human remains in his fridge and slow-cooking body parts in a crock-pot. Dexter confronted him in his pristine kitchen, confirmed the truth, and brought him to the kill table. There, he killed Galuzzo off-screen. A.J. Yates, Season 8, Episode 5. A.J. Yates was a former patient of Dr. Vogel, one of the early subjects in her attempts to study psychopathy. After a brain lesion, Yates began abducting and torturing women in a hidden room beneath his house. When he discovered Vogel's involvement with Dexter, he kidnapped her. Dexter tracked Yates and Vogel back to his house, where he burst in to find Vogel held tied up with no sight of Yates. Noticing a bloodstain next to the bed, Dexter grabbed a curtain rod and drove it straight through the bed, into Yates' chest, killing him instantly. Oliver Saxon, Season 8, Episode 12. Oliver Saxon, born Daniel Vogel, was the true identity of the brain surgeon, a remorseless killer who removed sections of his victims' brains and left them as twisted gifts. After he shot Deborah and left her comatose, Dexter captured him and brought him to the police station, planning to let the justice system decide his fate. But Dexter grabbed the pen and drove it into Saxon's throat, killing him in front of a surveillance camera. Officially, it was self-defense, but Dexter knew it was vengeance. Deborah Morgan, Season 8, Episode 12. Deborah Morgan was Dexter's sister, his closest connection to humanity, and his final victim. After being shot by Oliver Saxon, Deborah suffered a massive stroke during surgery, leaving her in a permanent coma. With the hospital preparing to remove her from life support, Dexter made the choice himself. He entered her room, shut off the machines, and held her hand as she slipped away. He then threw her body into the ocean, like he did with his victims. Maybe he thought of Deb as one of her victims too. Even though he didn't cause her death, he felt responsible. Matt Caldwell, New Blood, Episode 1. Matt Caldwell was a spoiled, reckless rich kid with a history of getting away with deadly behavior, including a boating accident that killed 5 people. When he illegally hunted and killed a rare white buck, Dexter's 10-year restraint finally shattered. He knocked out Matt, took him back to his shed where he set up the kill room and stabbed him in the chest. Jasper Hodge, New Blood, Episode 5. Jasper Hodge was a drug dealer responsible for recklessly making the drugs that caused his son to nearly die. After connecting him to the deaths, Dexter broke into Jasper's cabin and confronted him. Dexter used Jasper's own supply, forcing him to overdose on his own drugs. Elric Kane, New Blood, Episode 8. Elric Kane was Kurt Caldwell's enforcer. He tied Dexter up and was bringing him to a private location for Kurt when Dexter choked him, causing him to crash the car. After escaping capture, Dexter started running away when he was shot. Dexter outsmarted Elric in a cabin, found out where his son was being held, then killed him and covered the body with a tarp. Kurt Caldwell, New Blood, Episode 9. Kurt Caldwell posed as a kind-hearted community leader, but beneath the surface, he was a serial killer who preyed on vulnerable runaways. When Dexter and Harrison discovered his bunker and the embalmed remains of his victims, the truth became undeniable. That night, Dexter injected Kurt with M99 and laid him on a kill table inside the same room where he preserved his trophies. With Harrison watching, Dexter confronted Kurt with the faces of the women he'd murdered, then drove a knife into his chest. Wiggles the Clown, New Blood, Episode 9. Wiggles the Clown was a children's entertainer who used his costume to lure and murder young kids. Dexter told Harrison about him as an example of someone who clearly fit the code. The memory shows Wiggles strapped to a kill table, still in full makeup, begging for his life. Dexter didn't hesitate. He drove a knife into his chest and ended the act for good. Sergeant Logan, New Blood, Episode 10. Sergeant Logan was a good cop, a high school wrestling coach, and one of the few people in Iron Lake who genuinely cared about Dexter and Harrison. But when Angela uncovered the truth about Dexter's past, Logan was tasked with guarding him in a holding cell. Desperate to escape and reach Harrison, Dexter asked Logan for some water. Dexter didn't want to kill Logan, he just wanted the keys. But when Logan pulled his gun, Dexter snapped his neck in a single, brutal motion. It was the first time Dexter knowingly broke the code to save himself. Then we have got Original Sin, where we see Dexter kill Nurse Mary again. Tony Ferrer, Original Sin, Episode 3. Tony Ferrer was a ruthless Miami loan shark targeting desperate Cuban immigrants. He executed those who couldn't pay. He posed as Patrick Bateman, infiltrated Ferrer's home, subdued him in a fight, and lured him to an abandoned area. There, Dexter strapped him to a makeshift table, killed him, and dumped his body in the swamp. It was Dexter's first premeditated kill in proper ritual form. Anthony Moretti, Original Sin, Episode 4. Anthony Moretti, or Mad Dog, was a feared hitman with dozens of bodies behind him, but no evidence ever stuck. When Dexter found his file buried in the department's archives, he made Moretti his next target. Dexter had him strapped to his table, but he managed to escape. Moretti ran into the street and was instantly hit by a truck. Dexter never laid a killing blow, but the death was his all the same. Levi Reed, Original Sin, Episode 6. Levi Reed was a chilling serial home invasion killer responsible for 8 deaths, including 2 children. Arrested but acquitted due to a flawed alibi, his murder spree remained. Harry Morgan instructed young Dexter to finish the job. Dexter tracked Reed, sedated him with etorphine, and bound him to a kill table lined with photos of victims. Then he drove a knife into his chest. This was the kill that made Dexter a serial killer. Aaron Spencer, Original Sin, Episode 9. Aaron Spencer was a respected homicide captain in Miami Metro and Harry Morgan's close friend. But Dexter discovered the truth. Spencer was the masked kidnapper who tortured and killed murder victims like Jimmy Powell and hid his own son, Nicky. Dexter took him aboard a boat, bound, and questioned him. Spencer confessed that he used his child's safety as leverage. Dexter then stabbed him in the chest and disposed of his body in Biscayne Bay.